So if you look at the definition of hygiene, conditions or practices conducive to maintaining health and preventing disease, especially through cleanliness. So if you look at spiritual hygiene, if you look at the actions necessary for us to maintain or establish spiritual hygiene, we'll start with the practices. One of the first tools I think of when I think of spiritual hygiene is having a strong smudge. If I'm experiencing any type of hardship or difficulty in my day-to-day life, if I'm going through a stressful period, I'll smudge more often. On a day-to-day basis, I'll smudge when I wake up. I'll make it my morning routine to have a prayer, pray for my day upcoming, and I'll have a smudge to clear the energy that I may have accumulated while I was doing work in dream time. Smudging throughout the day for me is very important. Not only do I smudge when I wake up, I smudge every time I get in my vehicle to clear the energy that I might have been in the last time I was in the vehicle. Again, going back to stress, if I was having a stressful day, I would smudge my vehicle every time I get in it, just to clear the energy from the last time. I do not want to add to my day. I would like to have a clean slate every time I hit the road. So smudging every time I get in my vehicle, smudging every time I go to bed. And again, it's just clearing the energy from the day before I enter my rest period or going into dream time. If I have a difficult conversation, I will light the smudge while I'm talking. I'll have a smudge throughout the conversation. And a lot of the times I'm smudging not only my ears, I'm smudging my mouth so that the things I say are what needs to be said in that moment. So I'm clearing my channel when I'm helping people. I'll smudge my heart and smudge my neck and put smoke on my neck so that my path is clear between my heart and my mind. The other part to spiritual hygiene is walking intentionally. We have to be in a place where we intend to walk in a good way all the time. Even if somebody cuts us off in traffic, we're not going to go into a low vibration. We're not going to stoop down to any level if somebody does something that offends us. And we cannot do that if we do not maintain spiritual hygiene. And all that leads back to living and walking intentionally. If you intend to walk in a good way, then all kinds of factors have to be in play. And one of those is making good decisions. One of those is smudging off the energy of the night before, of the day before, of the work day, of the difficult conversations, of the stressful periods. So making sure that your energy is clear every time you move forward, every time you leave your house, anytime you start a conversation with a loved one. Living intentionally is spiritual hygiene. But I'd like to talk about perspective. How important it is if we're transitioning from a low vibration to a high vibration. We need to shift our perspective to look at things as opportunities instead of roadblocks, instead of obstacles. An example of shifting our perspective is looking at all the hardship that we've experienced in our lives. If we look at those things not as happening to us, but happening for us, is a shift in perspective. If we're able to come to a place where we see all of the struggles that we sit with currently as opportunities to heal, then we are ready to continue our healing journey. The key to healing is understanding. It is necessary for us to become students of all the hard life lessons we've encountered in our time. If we could shift our perspective from all those hardships happening to us to happening for us, then we are in the best position to move forward in our healing journey. Seeking understanding is our number one priority in our healing journey. My late teacher once shared with me that we come here for two reasons. One is to learn, and the other one is to love. How important is it to be a teacher and a student? We have to be in a place as teachers, as helpers, to be always teachable. Everybody's going to teach us something. Young, old, experienced, inexperienced. Everybody is here to bring us a lesson. It is important as teachers and as helpers to be open to these teachings, to these perspectives of others, because our understanding is forever growing. Our understanding is meant to grow, is meant to change, is meant to be fluid. We have to be fluid too. We have to be able to change. We have to be open to change. We have to welcome new perspectives, intentions, and setting intentions. Let's say you want to quit drinking. When I start working with people in recovery, the first question I ask them is, now that you're in recovery, what are you recovering? And I'll ask them not to answer me. That conversation is not for me. That's for their internal dialogue. That's for them to understand. That's for them to seek. The second conversation I have when I meet somebody in recovery, when I help somebody in recovery, is the stages to beginning your healing journey. The first stage to beginning your healing journey is permission. We need to give ourselves permission to talk about the things we don't talk about. We need to give ourselves permission to approach the correct people, whether it is a genuine helper, a genuine elder, a genuine healer, or a trained professional. Somebody that can give us the shift in perspective we require to understand the things that have happened to us, to understand the things that we are currently sitting with. The second stage to beginning your healing journey is setting intentions. Who do you intend to be next year? Who do you intend to be in 5 years? Who do you intend to be in 10 years? What does that version of you look like? And when you struggle in your day-to-day life, we have a fork in the road. One option is we could go down that dark path again. We can reawaken all of those negative cycles that were introduced to us growing up. We can be negative. We can be nasty. We can be mean. We can be low vibrational. Or we can walk in a good way, which at the beginning is going to take effort. We have to intentionally walk in a good way. It's difficult at the beginning, but after we change our mind, we change our ways, there's no effort. That becomes how we are on our road, living intentionally, walking intentionally. Integrity is doing the things you said you would when nobody's looking. Integrity is the thing that you promised yourself at the beginning of your journey and you stuck to it. Reflecting on my late teacher's teachings. Early on, one of the most impactful perspectives he shared with me is that when he decided he was gonna heal himself, one of the phrases that he shared with himself was that from this day forward, there will be no more victims in my footsteps. And that includes myself. If I didn't hear that at the beginning of my healing journey, I don't know if I would be as strong as I am this far in. I don't know if I would have taken this journey as seriously as I have to this point. Victimizing self, what does that look like? For me, it was overindulging. For me, it was alcoholism, gambling. It was not fully respecting those around me, not respecting myself enough to understand what I was doing to myself through my actions. It was not taken into consideration how much I was hurting those around me and what type of pain they were experiencing seeing me in the conditions I was showing up in. The thing about exiting the alcohol energy, if people don't believe you when you tell them that you're making changes, they'll keep reminding you that you're just like them. They'll keep reminding you that alcohol is a good thing. They'll keep trying to remind you that you are one of them. My teacher told me right at the beginning when I set my intentions to start learning the old ways, he told me to go to everybody in my family and tell them what my intentions are. To tell them that I am no longer gonna participate. So what happens when you exit the alcohol energy? That energy will call you back in many forms. One of the ways that I experienced that energy calling me back when I quit alcohol was I had repeated dreams of alcohol. I would be dreaming of settings that I remembered, settings from my hometown establishments. I'd be dreaming of far off exotic places, and there'd be alcohol involved. And that is a form of that energy trying to call me back. Another way that it shows up is that people will try to remind you of your time with alcohol. I experienced people posting pictures of me in alcohol settings years after I began my spiritual understanding of my journey. Another way that alcohol tries to call us back, that we're all familiar with, is when we do not have the means to indulge, we'll get offers. People will call us up. People will come to the door, say, come on, we're going out. Even if you don't have money, those opportunities still come to your door. If the fridge is empty, nobody's coming to knock on the door to fill your fridge up for you. So you see how this energy works, how it calls us back at inopportune times. It's going to try to keep us in that vibration of alcohol. It's important to understand that to all these low vibrational energies, all these low vibrational spirits, that us as human beings are no more than a playground to them. So these dark energies, these dark spirits, they want us to suffer. They want us to screw up. They want us to be the worst version of ourselves. And that doesn't mean that I judge those who still indulge in alcohol. Just because my time is complete with that energy, it doesn't make it wrong for others. But keep in mind, if you are struggling with this energy, then there's a very strong likelihood that there is unresolved trauma. And this is where we need to understand that it's time for us to seek the perspectives of others. That it's time for us to seek the understanding that we're missing in our journey so that we can complete all these cycles that we may struggle with. And keep in mind that there is no right and wrong with our past. There's correct and incorrect. So what is the most important ingredient to healing for you? What are the essential ingredients to healing? What components have to be present for healing to begin? What components, and are those components the same to sustain healing? Are those conversations different? The beginning part and the continuation? Because the thing about healing is that it never ever stops. And from my perspective, that's a beautiful thing, because I want to keep learning about my past. I want to keep understanding my triggers. I want to keep growing as a human being so that I can be of service to others. What are the necessary components of healing to you. Have you ever seen something that's inspiring? Have you ever seen something that's awoken your spirit? What if that inspiration would change your life? What if that shift in perspective would change the lives of your children and your grandchildren and all those unborn? What value would you assign to this perspective that would shift all of the generations to follow you? What value would you assign to this shift in perspective that could change your community? What if that shift in perspective would be the inspiration that those around you are waiting for to heal? Spirit has gone into spirit world. A spirit has gone and received its healing from its time here on earth with us. A spirit has chosen to walk with us, to guide us. A spirit has chosen to do creator's work. A ghost is earthbound because it has chosen not to go into the spirit world. It has chosen not to go into its healing time. It has chosen not to decompress from its time with us on earth. Have you ever blacked out from drinking? Do you know what happens to your spirit when you overindulge? I've been there many times. I've woken up to the stories of the things that I did the night before. As much as I've claimed that I'm not capable of those things, they still happened. What happened? And I'll just use alcohol for this example. When we overindulge, our spirit gets sad. It doesn't want to see the things that we're doing to our body. So our spirit will leave us. It'll go for a walk. And if you've ever been so hungover, where you feel lost for several days, where you feel that you're sitting in depression that wasn't there before, or you feel anxiety that wasn't there before. It wasn't there before you overindulged. It's because our spirit is out walking. Our spirit is still sad about the things that we're doing to it by overindulging. We don't feel better for a few days until our spirit comes back to our body. And in the time that we blacked out, and the things happened that we truly believed we were not capable of. When our spirit decides to vacate our body, decides to go for a walk, what happens are all these earthbound entities will be lingering around all these low vibrational places. Drinking establishments, houses where drinking, heavy drinking is the norm. And these earthbound entities will inhabit our body after our spirit has decided to go for a walk. When our spirit leaves us and those things jump in us, those things are going to control us. They're going to do the things that they enjoy doing in their time on earth. So even though we may be firmly against some of these actions, it's not going to stop them from occurring because we are no longer present in our physical form. Now, if you've ever been in this position, and this isn't an excuse for the things that happen, this is a reality for the things that happened to our spirit. This is how we disrespected ourselves. This is how we bring ourselves to those points where our spirit is no longer willing to accept the actions that we are taking. Now, understanding this reality, we have a choice when we indulge. If you are not capable of socially drinking, then it's important to understand that there is unresolved trauma present. Now, this is where it's important for us to acknowledge where we're at in our lives, because we're going to struggle with many things, not just alcohol. When people come to us for help, it's usually because they're in trouble in other areas. Their job is at risk. Their family is at risk. There are things in their lives that are at risk that finally put them to a place where they have to understand where they're at. So that brings me back to the question I ask people when I first start working with them. If they are coming to me for help in recovery, what are you recovering? And I don't want people to have this conversation with me because there are a lot of obvious things. Oh, I'm recovering my family. I'm recovering my job. I'm recovering this or that. What it boils down to is you're recovering trust. You're recovering trust from your job. You're recovering trust from your family. You're recovering trust from your community. You're recovering trust from yourself. And there are a lot of truths that have to come forward when facing self, when it's time to change. And we have to accept these things. The first thing we have to understand is that these spirits, these alcohol spirits, these alcohol energies, they have a comfortable foothold in our energy. Sometimes they have a stronghold. And this stronghold, or this foothold, is trauma. Some people are able to drink socially. Some people are able to stop at 1 or 2. Now those with unresolved trauma, they're not going to stop. It's not a choice to stop. What it is an escape. What it is a trusted ally. And this is why we have to grieve when we're exiting alcohol energy, when we're exiting alcohol spirit. We have to grieve that trusted ally. We have to grieve that trusted route, that well-worn path to escapism. Now we look at our time with alcohol. How did it benefit us? And there have been benefits to our time with that energy, for sure. Not everything in our experience with alcohol was negative, otherwise we would have stopped it at the beginning. So being truthful with ourselves, telling on ourselves, even for those that have been long in recovery, they will tell you what they miss about it. And that's important. We have to understand that to complete our time with something, we have to change our mind about it. It doesn't mean that everything is bad about it. Where it led us, for sure, can often be bad for more than just ourselves. For a lot of us, we weren't shown a better way growing up. This was the example. This is where our compass was pointed. This is the only thing we knew. So we have to understand that a lot of times it wasn't our choice. It was the model. It was demonstrated to us to be acceptable behavior. And so we accepted that path because that's what everybody else did around us. That's what our loved ones did. That's what our friends did. That's what their loved ones did. This was the way to be. Are there other ways to be? For sure. Do you desire other ways to be? That's the place we have to come to. When you come to people for help, when you come to people for a perspective, we have to be open to those perspectives. We have to be an active participant in our recovery. And I know as men growing up, we're not often effective communicators. It took me a very long time to understand that. It took me a very long time to accept that, I should say. I didn't know how to express where I was at growing up. I didn't know how to ask for the things that I needed if I was lacking growing up. Just like everybody around me, I did the best I could with what I was shown, which was just the same as everybody else. If I were to give advice to young men coming up, I would say research communication styles. I would say research attachment styles. I would say understand your own personal history with what was demonstrated to you to be acceptable behavior. And I've helped lots of people in recovery. I myself been sober since 2011. I specifically have worked to this point since 2019 with men in recovery. I lost my own father to his addiction when I was 15 years old. And to receive the amount of healing that I've gotten from working with men in addiction has freed me from a lot of the beliefs that I felt my father made from a conscious decision. I truly believed that he chose not to be with his family. I truly believed that he chose to be a violent man in our home when he was under the influence. I truly believed that he consciously chose for our household to grow up in poverty. For me, to see him in his end days as a man on the street, made me decide, or helped me decide, that I was never going to be that man. A lot of people around us will show us how to be, and they'll show us how not to be at the same time. In order to forgive, we need to understand that the people who mistreated us were also born innocent as we were. It is important to understand that these people who mistreated us were not inventing these actions. They were taught these actions as well. What we have as a choice now that we're on our healing journey is to break the cycle of those teachings in our family. We have an opportunity to raise our loved ones in a home free of the things that we were shown growing up. We have an opportunity to raise them in a vibration that was not demonstrated to us growing up. And to me, this is the beautiful thing about healing, that the younger ones can trust us to be a better version of ourselves. I love the fact that my nieces and nephews will never see the version of me that was unbalanced. I love the fact that the younger generations will only see the version of me that is a student, that is a helper, and that is prayerful. I value being a positive male influence for both male and females. I value meeting other genuine helpers, the gifted ones who could see my intentions and who could see my actions, and who can see and that they can see that they are in alignment with me being a traditional helper.